Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to a $600 Intel gaming PC build. Now, I haven't done one of these Intel builds in a little bit, and recently I've been getting more requests to resume doing these Intel builds. I stopped for a little bit because I figured why do Intel and AMD builds, but if you guys keep requesting it, I guess I have no choice but to do it. So, here's a $600 Intel build. Let's get right into this with the CPU. For the CPU, I went with the Intel Core i3-3240. It's an Ivy Bridge CPU stocked at 3.4 GHz. It's LGA1155 and it's 55 watts. Now, the 3240 is pretty much like the Intel Core i3-3220, but it's just higher clocked at 3.4 GHz opposed to, I believe, it's 3.1 for the 3220. This is LGA1155, 55 watts as well, and the LGA1155 means you're going to have some upgradability options if you want to upgrade to an i5 down the line. That's something you probably want to look at a year or 2 years down the line. Now, this is actually only $120 right now, so that's a pretty solid price. The 3220, which is actually the lower clocked version of this CPU, is more expensive at $130 opposed to the 3240's $120, so that's kind of weird. Some of these pricings all the time, they're kind of messed up when better parts are cheaper than shittier parts. I don't really get it, but hey, whatever, good prices, I can't really complain. So a lot of people like to shit on the i3 because it's not an i5 and it's not a quad-core CPU, but the thing about the i3 is, look at games like Saints Row 4, look at games like XCOM Declassified or Splinter Cell Blacklist. Those are upcoming games that are really supposed to be meant to be played on a high-end PC. They all recommend an i3 3220 or an i3 2100, something like that. So an i3 is still a very capable CPU. Yes, more and more games are starting to take advantage of CPUs like i5 4570Ks or 4670Ks. And i5 3570Ks, 8350s, and whatnot, the higher-end CPUs. But these i3 3240s, they can still get the job done, and they're still fairly good CPUs. And again, it is LGA1155, so in the future, you will be able to upgrade to an i5 if you want to. For the motherboard, I went with the Asus P8B75-MLX+. This is an LGA1155 motherboard, Intel B75, SATA 6 gigabit per second, USB 3, and it's a micro ATX board. Obviously, in these budget-end builds, you usually side with the micro boards instead of a full-fledged board. This has 2 RAM slots, up to 2200 OC RAM. It's LGA1155, like I said, so you are going to have some upgradability options. Also has UEFI BIOS, and it's from Asus, and Asus generally 9 times out of 10 delivers a high-quality product, so I think this is a pretty solid motherboard for $70, and yeah, it's gonna be a good fit for the build. Now for the RAM, I went with G.Skill Ripjaws series, 8GB, 2 4GB sticks running at 1600 speed. This is actually $72, so kind of pricey RAM right here, but RAM prices have been, you know, slowly going up and working their way up to like from $40 to $72 now. It's really crazy, but hey, you gotta pay to play, so to speak. And 8GB of RAM, that's a lot of RAM. Really no reason to go for 16. 16 is not going to be adopted as a standard until maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, especially for gaming. I mean, those games that I mentioned, Saints Row 4, XCOM Declassified, Splinter Cell Blacklist, and even Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, they all recommend 4GB of RAM. So 8GB is, you know, going above and beyond what these games require. Moving on to the power supply, I went with the Corsair CX500M. This is $40 and it's a 500 watt power supply, but what's cool about this power supply, the CX500M is actually modular, so that actually helps with your cable management. It just keeps everything neater. I know some people like that, some people don't care for it, but the 500M is actually cheaper than the regular CX500, so why not go with the M? I mean, it is better as a modular power supply. So 500M for $40, that was a pretty solid addition to the build. For the graphics card, I went with the Asus DirectCU2 HD7770. This is the Radeon HD 7870. I really like this card, and I've liked it for a while. Yes, recently I haven't liked it as much as I used to, but I still really like this card for the value-consumed gamer. This is only $200, and this can run titles like Battlefield 3 and all the upcoming games in the fall at 1080p at reasonably high settings. For some of the later titles like Battlefield 4 and Watch Dogs, you might have to lower some of the settings, but this is a still very, very good card, and I highly recommend it. And the DirectCU2 is going to allow for extensive overclocking, although you might be somewhat limited by the power supply. That's, you know, depending on how far you want to take the overclock. But the DirectCU2 is a really good cooling solution. I mean, it is from Asus, and once again, 9 out of 10 times Asus delivers a very high quality product. For the hard drive, I went with the Western Digital WD Blue 1TB 1TB hard drive. You guys know what I always say, if you already have a hard drive from a previous build, you can either skip this step entirely or get a 60GB SSD if you want to. I know a lot of people aren't into SSDs, but I am, so just throwing that out there if you already have a hard drive. If not, Western Digital WD Blue 1TB is a great option to go with. Finally, for the case, I went with the NZXT Source 210. I know I'm kind of going a bit lower end on the case, but the Source 210 is a very solid case for about 40 bucks. This is actually the white model, which I like quite a bit, and it's a pretty decent case, and it has a lot of good ventilation, and it's a mid-tower case, so it's going to be able to fit all the parts no problem. Yes, it's not something like a half 912 or a half 922, or even a Fractal Design, you know, one of their fancy cases, but it's still a very solid case for the price that you're paying. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.